In a small, bustling store, a young deaf boy walks up to the counter, struggling to communicate his order. He's used to being overlooked or misunderstood, but today, something different happens. The cashier, a kind-hearted woman, notices his frustration and steps in to help him in the way he understands best, using sign language. What she doesn't know is that the man cleaning the floors nearby, who everyone assumes is just the janitor, is actually the store's wealthy owner. As the boy's mother watches with a grateful smile, the owner observes closely, intrigued by the kindness and patience the cashier has shown. Little does she know, this act of compassion is about to change everything for her. But will the cashier's good deed be recognized, or will it go unnoticed like so many others? Stay tuned to see how this unexpected twist unfolds. The young boy named Sam had been coming to the store with his mother for months. He loved the smell of fresh-baked bread and the bright colors on the shelves, but communicating his needs was always a struggle. People often ignored him or spoke over him, not realizing that Sam's world was quieter, yet filled with more meaning than they could understand. His mother had always tried to find places where Sam would feel accepted, but it wasn't easy. The cashier, Sarah, was relatively new to the job and had only started learning sign language to connect better with customers like Sam. She had no idea that the man sweeping the floors wasn't just an employee, but the very person who owned the entire store. To her, he was just another quiet man who kept to himself, offering only a polite nod whenever she passed by. But today, something in his gaze was different, almost calculating. As Sarah helped Sam, a quiet sense of pride filled her chest. She had been working hard to learn the signs, taking evening classes and practicing with her friends, just so moments like this could happen. She didn't expect it to mean much to anyone beyond Sam and his mother, but today felt different. There was something about the way the owner watched her, his dark eyes, usually so distant, now intense with focus. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being judged, not just for her work ethic, but for something more personal, something she couldn't put her finger on. Meanwhile, the owner, Mr. Bennett, hadn't been to his store in weeks. She followed him to the back office, her mind racing with possible scenarios. Was he about to fire her? Or worse, was he going to accuse her of something she didn't even know she had done? Mr. Bennett closed the door behind them with a slow, deliberate movement, his eyes never leaving hers. "You've been very helpful to that boy," he said, his voice low but sharp. "And I've been watching you. You've been doing more than just your job here." Sarah didn't know how to respond. His words didn't make sense. What did he mean by doing more? Was he accusing her of something? The tension was unbearable, the silence stretching on for what felt like forever. Then, just as she was about to speak, the office door suddenly flew open, and to Sarah's shock, Sam's mother burst in. She was out of breath, her eyes wide with panic. "Sarah, you need to get out of here. Now," she shouted, grabbing her arm and pulling her toward the door. Before Sarah could protest, Mr. Bennett stepped forward, his expression now fully enraged. "What are you doing?" he demanded. But it was too late. The confrontation had just begun, and everything was about to unravel in ways none of them could have predicted. As Sarah tried to pull away from Sam's mother, confusion clouding her thoughts, a loud crash echoed from the front of the store. Everyone froze for a moment, the silence broken only by the distant sound of shuffling feet. It was too late to back out now. Whatever was happening had already escalated far beyond anything Sarah could have imagined. "Stay here," Sam's mother whispered urgently, pushing Sarah toward the back exit. But Sarah couldn't move. The crash had come from the store's main aisle, where she had seen a group of people gather moments earlier. And then, as if on cue, Mr. Bennett's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, his face going pale. Without a word, he answered it, his tone instantly turning cold. "What do you mean?" he muttered into the receiver, his eyes never leaving Sarah. The sound of the phone call became a distant hum in the background as Sarah's mind raced. What had caused the crash? Was it related to Sam's mother's frantic warning? And why was Mr. Bennett so rattled all of a sudden? She could feel something far darker was unfolding, but she couldn't yet put the pieces together. Suddenly, Sam's mother grabs Sarah again, this time more forcefully. "There's no time," she said, her voice trembling. "He's not just the owner of the store, he's part of something much bigger, and now that you've caught his attention, you're in danger." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. The tension in the room was unbearable. "What are you talking about?" she asked, but the words caught in her throat as the door to the office slammed open again. This time, it wasn't just Mr. Bennett who walked in. A group of men in dark suits followed him, their expressions unreadable. They didn't look like ordinary employees. They were too polished, too controlled. One of them stepped forward, and Sarah immediately recognized him as someone she had seen in the store before, but never paid much attention to. His gaze locked onto hers, and she felt an unsettling chill run down her spine. "We need to talk," he said calmly, his voice smooth, but there was an edge to it that made her skin crawl. Before Sarah could react, Mr. Bennett's voice cut through the air, sharp and commanding. "Take her with us. Now." The room spun, and every instinct told Sarah to run, to escape. But where could she go? Her entire world, everything she thought she understood about this quiet, mundane store, was unraveling in front of her. She wasn't just caught in the middle of a corporate power struggle, she was in the heart of something much more dangerous. As they moved toward her, her mind raced. What was Sam's mother really trying to warn her about? And what was Mr. Bennett involved in? One thing was clear. This wasn't about a simple job anymore. It was about survival. And Sarah was about to find herself in the middle of a conspiracy that could cost her everything. As the men in suits closed in, Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. Sam's mother, desperate now, yanked her by the arm and dragged her toward the back door. "Move," she hissed. But Sarah couldn't fully grasp what was happening. The world around her felt like it was spinning, the walls closing in. Before she could process what was going on, one of the men reached out and grabbed her by the shoulder, forcing her to stop. His grip was strong, unyielding. She could feel the power in his hands, and panic surged through her veins. This wasn't just about a job, it was much worse. She was in over her head, and she knew it. "Let her go," Sam's mother snapped, stepping forward. But the man wasn't fazed. He turned his cold gaze to her, and without a word, he nodded to the others. "Take her," he said, his voice flat. But just as the men lunged, the door behind them burst open with a loud crash. Mr. Bennett's voice rang out. "Enough." The room froze. Sarah could hardly believe her ears. Why was he stopping them? She couldn't make sense of it. He'd been cold, calculating, even dangerous up until now. Was this some kind of trap? Mr. Bennett stepped forward, his face a mix of anger and resolve. "Sarah," he said, his voice sharp but strangely sincere, "you don't understand what you've walked into. But I'll explain everything. Just, please, don't make this harder than it has to be." Sarah's breath hitched. "Explain? You mean after everything? After dragging me into this mess?" But Mr. Bennett didn't flinch. "You've been part of this from the start. You've seen too much." Sam's mother spoke up then, her voice filled with desperation. "He's right. Sarah, you have no idea who you've been working for. This store, this company, it's a front. A cover for something far darker." Before Sarah could respond, Mr. Bennett cut in. "I never wanted you involved in this. You were supposed to stay out of it. But you've shown something we didn't expect, something we might need." Sarah's head was spinning. What were they talking about?